January 31st. I was thinking that I could do a book report at my garden in my house. So this is it. And perhaps, okay, this is really annoying. The bees, the bugs. I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of my garden. So I'm going to do a book report outside because it's sunny right now. The weather is good and I'm feeling good. And I hope that you're feeling good as well. Alright, let's get straight to the point without further ado. I've read 4 books. Well, I was hoping to read more. Juliet came and visited, so I didn't have more time to read as I have expected. Julia is a cutie pie, but anyways, I was so exhausted and I lied in bed almost until yesterday because I have to film this, so I woke up. But usually if I don't have to do this, I might probably just still be chilling in my bed. I don't know, I was trying to read more anyways, since college is always busy. I don't know when we're not busy, but after all, I love to read, so that's not a problem to me. But I was still hoping that I could read more. Basically, January 2023 was my dystopian month. All of my close friends know that I was doing a dystopian section because I was finally starting my blog and started writing reviews. And one of the reasons why I only read 4 books was because I was writing reviews. Each review cost me like a whole day. I wasn't a fast writer. I was hoping I could write faster. I have to use a whole day into producing a new article, and so it takes time to think over a book, like really thoroughly think. That's probably the reason why I wasn't reading as much as I had expected. But the books I've read are 1984, Brave New World, We, and Norwegian Wood. I actually have no idea what Chun's English name is. Haruki Murakami. And you might not be unfamiliar with the first 3 books. They are the most important works in dystopian genre. If I were to give a proper order, I'd say that you can read Brave New World first, and then We, and then 1984. Brave New World was a good start. It shows you a basic dystopian setting, but it was not the cleverest. You have to save the goods for later. Although Brave New World wasn't the first dystopian book ever in history, it's the most basic and fundamental one out of 3. It shows you a genuine framework of future society, especially a really advanced version. The future could be possibly realized by biological engineering, medical advancement. Everything could be possibly happening with technology improvement. Babies were not born from mothers anymore. Children were engineered. Everyone was classified into different levels, rating from alpha to epsilon. Each level has their own responsibility and work. Even before birth, they have their own system of knowledge that was engraved inside their brains before they even know what that means. A world where happiness stands atop. Happiness is the only and the foremost important thing. People was no longer restricted by moral conventions that we had. And they think the term mother and father is outdated, barbarian, insulting to others. They were conditioned to be not believing it, and they also don't have long-term relationship. Like everything we deemed as convention, deemed as morality, they think that it's savage, selfish if you were to be with others for a really long time. Like everyone belongs to everyone else. They don't have privacy. They see privacy as selfishness. They see privacy as a disease. They don't approve of that. Everything was quite just like upside down. And that's how you get to see dystopian was something that tries to construct a reality that was quite opposite to ours. It was like a hindsight opinion because I've read so many more different dystopian works. Brave New World wasn't that impressive for me, not because it wasn't good, but because I've read more. I think it's not a really fair judgment to say that Brave New World wasn't a good work, still a good work, but some of the plots, some of the perspective was still rather limited. You don't really see Huxley's judgment on this world, you can only see that he portrays this world where the future was quite different from us. But is it worse? He didn't mention that. He just gave us a different version of reality for us to view it. But when the technology advanced to a state that this kind of bounds between people wasn't necessary anymore, we don't really have that sense of belonging. And what's the thing that you cling to when you need support? Okay, so there's a drug called soma. As long as you feel unsatisfied, you feel like bad emotions were emerging from you, you can just take one pill of soma and then you immediately forget everything and you feel happy again. They're free from social conventions and they have this drug that heals them when they feel down. You wouldn't have anything to complain, but you also don't know that you were controlled and the government was controlling you through entertainment, through sexual intercourse, drug use, and hence give up everything, every rights that they had. You no longer have your own independent thinking and you don't feel like there's anything wrong or there's anything worthy of your attention anymore. The reason why I gave it only a 3.5 stars, I'd said that the story wasn't that compelling. The writing is rather bland. It's not bad, it's just you can see the writing style everywhere. There's nothing really impressive comparing to other works. It's nice, but not great. It's innovative, but I've definitely seen something else similar before. There are some flaws in Brave New World that could be better. And We by Zamyatin is in Russian work, and it was actually the first book that was written in dystopian genre. It even influenced George Orwell into writing 1984, and that's really cool to see such parallels in different works and see how one work has its own impacts on the other one. In this world where everything was made of glass, it was also depriving people's privacy. Every minute in their life was already organized. The only thing they have to do is to follow the order. Every single person in this world has no names but numbers. So they were conditioned to the fact that each person was a part of a huge machine. Each person has their own responsibility to make this machine function well. Again, in We, there is no individuality. So in the beginning, this protagonist, D503, he was a mathematician. The beauty of math, the beauty of rationality. He was super supportive to this idea. He was precise, he was elegant, he needs everything to be meaningful in a way that he can find answer to it. He admires everything in order, and he likes to be disciplined, or rather he needs the world to be disciplined, answerable. And it turned out that everything happens in this book was something that he had never learned before. He could not have imagined there's someone he met that could change his own life, even found out things or perspective or aspects of himself that he never really knew existed. There were 40 entries. It was all written by Z503, and because he was the executive for this spaceship that was about to launch into the space, they hoped to promote that everyone should be happy, and happy is the only way your life gets meaningful. He wrote these entries in order to save it into the spaceship and send it out to other aliens to educate them. So you see his transformation through this 40 entries. At first, really supportive to rationality, but then gradually found out that there was other sides of himself that he never even noticed of. Later, he met this woman named I330. She was basically everything that the protagonist isn't. There's a green wall, prevents all those citizens from trespassing, because outside the green wall, all the barbarian things that existed, that was hoped by the government to be extinguished, to be never existing in the new society. Everything outside the green wall symbolizes barbarianism, was something that D503 never knew before. People like him, they were not taught to respect all those things. When he was taken by I330 into that world, he was rather shocked Just like he was shocked by the fact that there's no answer in some certain questions in this world. He couldn't really understand love. He couldn't really understand emotions that existed inside himself. So when those emotions emerged, he was terrified. He thought he was sick. There was another self of him that was emerging, like a savage trying to devour his rationality. But in fact, it was just part of the humanity that the government is hoping to surpass. Although we as a dystopian, it was like a love story. It was like falling in love for the first time. You have never fallen in love before, and falling in love can be somehow terrifying. All those emotions you have never experienced before are so strong and so overwhelming that you couldn't really resist it and you couldn't really figure it out. Also, things about love don't have absolute answers to it. The plot is really complete. The character arc is well portrayed so that you can really feel him. You can tell every emotions that he had. It's really interesting to see a character become humanized. Those character was at first like a humanoid, but gradually they know more about humanity. Dystopian fictions like to put two different extremes together and see if they collapse or see if they work anything out. The idea that individuality was always put into the protagonist's nature. They would have this instinct to discover a spot or a flaw of this society. Why I was so attracted by dystopian fictions? At first, it's because of the setup, worldview. I think it's just human nature to see something that was totally opposite from the world that you're living in. I was always intrigued as to see how those characters respond, how the people living in that kind of society and how different they could be from you. You can almost predict how it ends. When it comes to giving only two options for any human being to choose, it's likely that you can't really choose from one. Let's say it's either freedom or happiness that you're choosing. If you're choosing happiness, then you have to sacrifice your freedom. And if you choose freedom, then you will no longer be happy. But is that a truth? Do we really have to choose between these two? My personal answers to that would be no. You can't really divide things into absolute fractions. You can't really divide them. If you have read a certain amount of dystopian fictions, I think you might be already predicting the ending of the book. The rationale of dystopian is not really reasonable when you think about it. It totally divided something up. It's not possible for human nature to do so. Take we, for example. It was setting freedom and happiness apart. It's not in human nature that these two things be spelled up. So when someone tries to do that, certainly there would be another one trying to fix that up. And so you can really predict before you read dystopian, the ending might be a failure. It couldn't really work out in that kind of setting in the beginning. So what attracts me wasn't how this world would ended up being, but how do we as an individual react to this kind of world. 1984 was a book that I've read already for 2 times. I was still in love with it. Legitimately, I wasn't reading this in January. I was reading it for the last couple of months of 2022, but it has all of my respect. So 1984 was about Winston Smith. He was just an everyman. He works at records department, super normal, and basically his work every day. Alright, that's my dog. I find it really hard to talk into the camera when you have to think. But I feel like I haven't been talking to anyone ever since winter vacation. I think I was processing as well as trying to figure out the proper grammar. You have to constantly reminding yourself that you're talking as if you're talking to someone. I rate it for 5 stars. I definitely love it and I will definitely recommend it to anyone. It is a book about It's really hard to pronounce. It's a book about totalitarianism, and in simpler words, it means authoritarian. It means tyranny. His work was to alter the history when the authority wants him to do so. So he was helping to alter the truth he was like the pawn of this whole party. The party has a figurehead. Like, nobody ever knows if this guy existed or not, but like, it's not the point. The point is that this figurehead big brother is watching everyone. So he got the absolute power into surveillance every single man, their daily work, their private lives. His primary work was to find out whether anyone has the thought of overthrowing the whole party. In a worse way, you can even find out like real examples in reality, parallels to the plots. You know that this might be a possible future. 1984 portrays a world we don't want to see. It's deprivation of humanity, human rights, privacy, and even freedom. It's just terrifying. It's just like unbelievable for me, at least. I would definitely not want this kind of world to exist. But sad enough is that we already have a part of this world that works like this. To be the pawn of the whole entire game. I feel like I'm saying a lot of things that I shouldn't say, and I'm missing a lot of things that I should have said. 1984 was a really important work for me to realize that it's not just stories. It was my first or second book that I have read after I grown up, after I became a major. And I really like reading, being able to dive into a world, imaginative, but you feel so authentic, so real. And I like the feeling of getting into somewhere else that I might never have a chance to actually live in. And even if I am like lucky enough to experience something in my real life, it was so cold, I couldn't really speak straight, have a second or a third life simply because of reading. Books are really my best friends. Now, books understand me, and I understand those books much more than any real human beings can understand me. There aren't many people that could get me, so perhaps the only thing that I can do now is to write more, talk more, share more, to that those people who care about me know more about me. Because I'm a thinker, I like to know what people think, and it's really important that I get to know what others think about the things that I care. So stay tuned. I'll see you next time.